Hello there and welcome. I'm Reverend Nhien, founder of Evolving Enneagram. If you've been seeking a compassion-based, contemplative approach to Enneagram-informed transformation, you are in the right place. This is where contemplation meets the Enneagram. We are in week 47 of a 52-week Sunday Talk series based on the book by Oren Sofer, Your Heart Was Made for This. Today's talk is entitled Embodying Compassion Amid Life's Conflicts and Challenges. I thought this might be particularly apropos as at least we in the United States here, enter into our holiday season, starting with a Thanksgiving national holiday, and then moving into a season of religious observances across various spiritual and religious traditions, whether it be pagan, Jewish, Christian, among others as well. And so in the midst of that, whether or not you celebrate any one tradition or custom, we are as a culture, and then with the US kind of dominating for the better or the worse, some of the world culture, that culturally this is a time where families can get together, etc. And because of it also, I'm aware that for many of us, this is a time of grief, uh, grief over the loss of loved ones, not being able to spend this special time with them. For others, it might be actually the anxiety, the stress of being among loved ones, right? Among family members. And so today, I hope today's talk is supportive of you. If you find yourself in a space, whether it's a minor or a major conflict, whether it's just a moment where you need to take a breath and collect yourself, get grounded, and also express compassion to yourself. This is what today's session is about. So with that, let's begin. I'd like to open with some words by James Finley. He's faculty at the Center for Action and Contemplation. And he says, contemplation embodies compassion. The more we are transformed in compassion, the more we act with compassion toward others. I love this because too often, I believe, in spiritual spaces, especially in more traditional religious contexts, there's this charge to be nice, to be kind, to be compassionate. And much of that can invite us to behave or act in that way, right? And even, come home to our families and put on that face, right? Even if we're grimacing inside or resentful, we feel hurt or betrayed, or just deeply depressed or despondent, right? Whatever it is. And so today's invitation and practice has to do with how we can actually meet our inner world with compassion in a way that allows the natural compassion, that is the state of our heart when we are open-hearted, to allow that to continue to flow, but first within ourselves. In Sofer's book, in his chapter on compassion, he leads with this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King, and it is, "True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring." And of course, Dr. Martin Luther King is speaking to the systems of oppression under which authentic personal freedom and a way of honoring one another's equality can't be had, that we can't just be kind and nice on an interpersonal level without changing something more structurally. And I deeply believe this on the societal level, but I also believe this on the individual level. I believe it's the same thing when we do somatic informed inner work, we are actually changing the infrastructure within our being. The personality typing structure begins to get transformed. And so I want to give credit to my teacher in all of this, Marion Gilbert, who has said radical inclusion of the conflict within creates inner peace. We have this amazing power to choose our placement of attention. And in fact, this is actually core to my first Enneagram training, which Marion is also, she's from that tradition, which is the narrative tradition of the Enneagram. We begin with understanding the role of the inner observer, our ability to place our attention. And so if you find yourself in the midst of a challenge or conflict, a struggle that, it's like, it feels like it's unbearable, right? Or unsustainable, or that you feel like there's a way that you have to hide who you are, you might take some time, go to the restroom and sit and practice placement of attention where you recognize that we do always have free choice to place our attention consciously. And the problem is when something happens and it hits us, we don't actually move within to really be with ourselves in this compassionate way. We distract ourselves. You know, you get hurt in the middle of an interaction, you might just get really busy instead. Just go back and go washing those dishes vigorously, right? Instead of actually really being with what just happened within yourself. And so consider that we tend to distract ourselves from our own inner conflict. And we do it even when, so let's say we're at home visiting family, being with people, we're in a situation where we don't give ourselves permission to be ourselves, right? We're acting out of integrity. There's cognitive dissonance, which is an inner conflict. And so now we've got outer conflict, we've got inner conflict. And so that inner conflict, Marion teaches, comes from a divisive inner world that consists of attraction and aversion. And of course, this comes from the Buddhist teaching on that. And in attraction and aversion serves our survival needs, right? It's not like it's inherently wrong to have this. Attraction and aversion serves our survival in a finite world. It protects us from harm, right? We feel averse to poison, bad, right? And then like ice cream, good. Or maybe not ice cream, I'm just kidding. For some people, ice cream is poison. So ice cream harmful, but you get the point, right? We have natural attraction and aversion that is essential to our survival. So let's not demonize this. And at the same time, these survival tendencies create a great divide between our automatic attention being placed on what we're attracted to and what we are averting our attention from, right? So the part of reality we think we need to avoid based on perceived danger or possible harm. And, you know, in our culture, we've moved away from even like physical harm. It's more than just moving away from physical harm, right? We do this in the face of what we perceive as emotional or psychological harm, right? And when I say perceive, not to undermine that some of it is like actual harm. What I mean is that we can sometimes perceive a threat even when it's gone, right? Because someone does something and it triggers an old wounding of ours. So I'm encompassing the parts when it's actually happening as well as the parts that we're perceiving it happening, because our systems, our bodies are still holding that wounding and that contraction that happens around, oh, we've got to protect ourselves, right? So the part of reality we need to avoid based on this perceived danger or possible harm is activated by overwhelming sensations that flood our neurobiological system. So you can see how it's like we literally, like fight or freeze, right? And I know some of you have learned that fawn is an additional reaction related to that. The way Marion Gilbert teaches it, she thinks of fawning as a secondary reaction. So that's just how she teaches it. I don't have a strong opinion one way or another because I am not an expert in that. But so basically, after we've survived like a real threat, the fear will stay in our nervous system as it originated by our thoughts, much of which is based on the past, now perceived in the present, and then in our anticipated future. And these thoughts move rapidly through time. It creates patterns of perceiving reality that are based on the contained overwhelm that will continue to broadcast the need protect, right? And so we, in a moment, have this conflict or challenge. It's like, protect. And we wonder why, even events that we've planned for such joy, we end up miserable, frozen, retracted in all these ways. So as Marion teaches, the types bias, our Enneagram types bias is created by a division between what's perceived to be safe. And a lot of times in human interactions, not all the time, but a lot of times we're talking about just psychological, like egoic protection. I'm defending my egoic structure, right? So now remember, I'm focusing on the psychological aspect because if you are in actual immediate danger, if you're being abused, then to me, the safest thing is to leave, to remove yourself physically from that situation. We're talking about imminent threat as opposed to the sense of threat from something that feels like it's just bringing up this old contraction or wound, right? So I'm not talking about not responding to actual immediate abuse or other threats. So, okay, with that said, staying in the realm of sensation, this is the process I want to invite you to today without following our thoughts, right? This is so different from what most of us are taught. We're like, oh, if we figure it out, if I figure out why mom triggers me so much when she won't sit down to the dinner table, and is still putting around, serving all of us, and it's just not present, right? That like, I can think about why, but this invites us to go into the realm of sensation. So by staying in the realm of sensation without following our thoughts, using the placement of attention, a skill, right? By allowing pure sensations to be witnessed, allowed and move through us, we can become greatly aware of our own aliveness and yet feel that without the sense of inner conflict. We can just feel the flow of our aliveness. And Marion writes, abiding in the field of awareness itself gives us enormous energy out of which inner peace and compassionate action arise naturally. So, with that, I invite you to join me now in doing a brief somatic placement of attention practice. So I invite you to not close your eyes yet, but begin by noticing what feelings have come up for you. Maybe it's even in anticipating an interaction and you're not even there at this moment, right? Or maybe it's something that recently happened that might be triggering you even now. And so I invite you to begin by just looking around you, beginning with looking in front. Just sensing what is in front of you. Noticing your feet on the ground. You might be lying down. Noticing your body on the ground. You could be sitting down. Noticing also your bottom on the seat. You don't have to do this particular practice sitting down necessarily. You might be walking. Notice the sensation of your feet hitting the ground. And then notice, look to the right. Notice what's to the right of you. Notice, or just sense into what's to the left of you. And notice what's behind you, just in a felt way. Just be aware of your place, your belonging in this moment. And now, see if you can turn your attention inward. Place it on the inside of your skin. Notice the movement of your breath and how it already follows this trajectory, whether or not you were conscious of it, but now you are. Just noticing how it moves through your nostrils and then goes down through your throat, esophagus, into your belly. And then it stops, and in that stop, there's a pause before the breath naturally moves back up and out to where it came from. The breath allows you to be alert, aware, alive. Feel how there's just validity here right now in your very being that you can sense through your own breath. And then you might be aware of how each thought, each feeling, each sensation in you creates a ripple out into the world. And when you're caught in a fear or guarded or anger response, it can inform the entire environment unconsciously. But somehow, this placement of attention on what is free inside of you, on the well-being inside of you, shifts something automatically. Noticing again your breath in and down until it comes to that natural stop. And then the breath on its own returns from where it came. Notice if you can place your breath on the place inside of you that's already whole and free, a place that remembers who you are and who you were created to be, remembers what your true being feels like. Yeah. And that there's more to this world than what it appears to be. And within you, there is a greater presence and sense of being alive and valid. There is a part of you that remembers you were created to be loved. You know what it's like to be beloved. As you inhale through your nostrils, with the intention to place attention on that part of you that is already whole and free and deeply joined with the benevolence of spirit, of the universe. Notice what happens. Feel again the breath going through your nostrils, dropping into the neck, through the diaphragm, into the belly. That pause and then the exhale. And then in this moment, inviting somatic inquiry. Please show me the part of me that is already free and already whole, already at peace, that knows it's beloved. And the breath is like a river, Can you sense it flowing into the open spaces, even the liquid spaces inside of you? It doesn't have to flow everywhere. Just notice where it does, rather than where it doesn't. Where there's some space already welcoming it. And there must be, if you can even listen to me, if you are alive, there is some space within you that knows, that welcomes this aliveness. And as you keep placing your attention there and returning it there to know yet again, you are free. Earlier this year, earlier in the Sofer book, we talked about attention and energy. Here it is again. How important is it? We know that where attention is, energy follows. So we place attention on where you are already free. For as long as you want to, you can even pause this video, allow your breath to flow into that area and to stay. Breathing in, breathing out. There's a certain part of your nervous system that will begin to resonate in a certain way that's different from the frequency of your trigger. It might come into contact with a part that's still contracted. In this compassionate process, everything belongs. We are not trying to get rid of anything. We are offering ourselves a reprieve and a resource that, as we place our attention on that resource, will naturally begin to grow and develop. So as I bring this time to a close, you certainly don't have to. But I want to close with the words of Martin Luther King, and you might hear them in a different way now, as it applies within and without. Returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Over and over again, we are invited to embrace and accept every part of ourselves, not to distract ourselves from it, to love it, to bring light to it. And as we do, this light begins to grow. And as the light grows, it doesn't battle the darkness, but wherever light is, darkness simply is not. And so it is with compassion, that when we bring the light of compassionate awareness to the parts that we might have repressed or rejected or believed we could not be with, that light begins to light up our entire being with a sense of wholeness that then emanates into the world. And yes, it moves out as right action and right speech, and yet it does it in a way that is not fake or forced or self-rejecting, but rather stemming from that truth and that namaste that is so popular in our day. But the truth of that love, light, the wholeness, the divinity in me beholds the divinity in you. Wholeness beholding wholeness, compassion being aware that that is expressed between you and me and ultimately the whole world. Namaste.